Muy buenas tardes, bienvenidos a todos a este primer año anual almuerzo del legado de César y Chavez. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our first annual Chavez Luncheon, Legacy Luncheon. We are absolutely elated that everyone is here today. Everyone. It's not only an event of celebration, but it's also an event of recommitment to all those people in this country who work and work and work to make sure that you and I have fresh vegetables, fruits on our tables. Isn't that correct? Hello. Therefore, we have a full program for you today. We hope that you enjoy it. I'm accustomed to making sure that the audience is engaged. Huh? Thank you so much. Muchísimas gracias cada uno de ustedes, okay? All right, take a seat.
Gracias. Buenas tardes. Bienvenido. Soy Justin Sheehan, director educativo de Promisa. La Promisa. La Promisa.
Give a man!
And that is why they don't normally give me a mic. We are so pleased to be here. It is my privilege to be a part of this work because the reality is today we celebrate Chicano history, we celebrate Latino history, we celebrate American history. This is our history. And so to keep this party moving, let us introduce the Honorable Mayor Andy Schmidt.
Thank you, Justin. I'm not even going to try. But that was masterful. Masterful. That's all right. So welcome to this lunch in honor of Cesar Chavez. And thank you all for joining us today. We've been talking about this for a while, about doing a big event and inviting a lot of people, and it's really fun to see that this has come together, and for such a great reason. This is so important. I want to officially welcome Andres Chavez to Lansing, the grandson of Cesar Chavez. You all know this. We know that Cesar Chavez's legacy across the U.S., especially here in Michigan, here in Lansing, it remains strong. He is an icon. He's a social entrepreneur focused on nonviolent social change. He was a trailblazer for the environment, for consumers' rights, for organizing. He has done so much with his causes. He made strides for migrant workers that were dealing with inhumane conditions while in his leadership role for the farm workers movement. He is someone in a whole variety of areas who has made so many important and impressive changes that we need here in this country. So that's why we honor him. I want you're going to hear a lot about it, so you don't need to hear from me, but I'm really excited because he is someone who was here in Lansing. He came here several times. He visited. Many of you who are a little older than me had an opportunity to sit with him. I'm young. I wish that were true. But you had a chance to sit with him. I wish I did. I wish I had that opportunity. But he is someone that we remember that he came here and he talked about conditions and he talked about the things going on throughout this country in the South and in other places. He talked about the important issues and he had a great welcome here. He was so welcome here that the first act that I did as mayor, and many of you were there and remember, the first act that I did as mayor was to put up a sign for Cesar Chavez up in Old Town, where we renamed the street. First act. And I got yelled at by my wife because I had to stand up on a ladder and put it up there. And then Marilyn, yes, you were holding the ladder, Marilyn was there. But what an honor to rename a street for Mr. Chavez. and to be able to stand up there and show the community how important this is. His enduring legacy and his inspiration for social justice movements across the world, they continue to bring people together. And that's why we're here today. That's why you're spending time in your day. That's why you're having lunch with friends and breaking bread. That's why we're going to hear from his grandson today. So thank you all for being part of this inaugural event. It's only going to get bigger and bigger. We know that. I've already heard from people who are like, oh, I didn't know what was going on. I wanted to come. We know that this is going to get bigger and bigger. And I'm excited for the future, and I'm excited that I can explain to my children the impact of Mr. Chavez, and that we can continue to talk about this so his impact and his philosophies can continue on into the future. Thank you all for being here today.
We cannot seek achievement for ourselves and forget about progress and prosperity for our community. Our ambitions must be broad enough to include the aspirations and needs of others, for their sakes and for our own. That was one of the many prolific quotes from Cesar. Now, there's someone who believes that very strongly. You've heard it from him once. Allow me to read a little bio. Lorenzo Lopez is a native of Lansing, Michigan, a graduate of MSU, an influencer in both the Latino and LGBTQ community for over 30 years. So, not young. Experience. Currently a board member of the Suits in the city, 5 years as chairperson, member of LCLAA, which is Labor Council for Latino American Advancement, Lansing, Michigan chapter, on the executive board. He's been part of the history of Chavez since the street name changed. Vice chair of the former Capital Area Cesar Chavez Commission, also one of the initiators of Lansing for Chavez Committee, and currently on the planning committee for the first annual Cesar Chavez Legacy Luncheon. A recipient of the Michigan Heritage Award 2023, received special recognition of Mayor Shore's Racial Justice and Equity Alliance Co-Chair Arts and Culture 2021, Talento Latinos and Michigan TV LGBTQ Activist Award 2020, City Pulse LGBTQ Inclusion Award 2019, Labor Council for Latino American Advancement Executive Committee, a professional Latino dancer, teacher, and director of Mexican folkloric dance, salsa, merengue, bachata, cumbia, flamenco, and the man can dress. Ladies and gentlemen, Lorenzo Lopez.
Wow, and it was a brief one. That was my brief bio. Thank you all for being here. I have been very fortunate to be involved in every single movement, street, committee, organization that recognized and honored the iconic Cesar E. Chavez. So I'm going to speak briefly to that, and then I'm going to give you an introduction of somebody else who initiated Cesar E. Chavez Street here in Lansing, Michigan. After Chavez died, we at Cristo Rey Community Center, some of the people are here, Patricia Briones, Guillermo Lopez, myself, Mr. Benavides, and my sister Rosa. We said, we have to do something. We cannot just sit. So for 3 years in a row, we had events at the center. And then after the third year, we said, nope, has to be bigger. It's too small. We cannot accommodate all the people that we wanted. So we then met with the Mayor Hollister, as these people all know. Then we created a capital area Cesar Chavez Commission. And we had very significant events at the Lansing Center. There's always issues when you deal with human beings. Nevertheless, after that, we had the Lansing, Michigan Committee for Chavez. And that's evolving. So today is a reflection of all that history leads up to today. Now, the street name was very controversial. Some of you who are here will remember that. In 1994, Grand Avenue was named Cesar Chavez Avenue. Of course, there was a group of people who said, oh, no, we can't change history. So there was a voting, actually vote to rescind that name. We voted here. Hello? Can you get it?
We may need to keep you back here. Try it. Try back here, see if it says.
Hello?
There we go.
Oh. I'll do it. Anyway, so that was rescinded. That street was taken back and called Grand Avenue again, what it is today. Okay? Now, I'd like to introduce, let me put my glasses on for this, a young man who, through his belief in the Chavez movement, initiated a new drive for the city of Lansing for Cesar A. Chavez. Born to Gloria and Ricardo Gordillo, and grandson of Ubaldo and Lita Patino, a native of Lansing, began his social justice advocacy by renaming Grand Avenue in Lansing Cesar A. Chavez. In 1994, as a student at MSU, he was involved with MECHA movement that led to the establishment of Cesar A. Chavez wing in the main library and the Chicano Latino Studies program. Today, Paulo continues to advocate for low-income, first-generation, and underserved students in the Greater Lansing area as the Associate Director of College Access Initiatives at Michigan State University. Give him a big hand, please. He is part of our history. Paulo Gordillo.
I appreciate it. Good afternoon. Good afternoon again. Órale. So again, thank you so much for joining us in this historic event, historic day. I want to first and foremost thank all the committee members for putting this together. I want to thank, first of all, Mr. Lorenzo Lopez, who I've known, some say too long. But you know, we work it out. Luciana Solis, Zane Benavides, and Guillermo Lirma, thank you so much for all the work that you do, specifically with our shoe campaign. So that's so great. So, this day, we're here for a lot of different reasons. Many of the folks in this room were and continue to be direct descendants of folks who works in the fields. Cesar made a lot of different visits to Michigan and a few very prominent visits here to Lansing. Most notably, in 1985, when he visited the Cristo Rey Community Center, while advocating not just for the boycott of table grapes, but also for good faith bargaining and the elimination of pesticides. Cesar's connection to Lansing's auto workers runs deep, deep, deep. Cesar's connection to Lansing's farm workers ran deeper. Many of us in this room are sons, daughters, grandchildren of farm workers. And a select few can remember spending long days in the fields, toiling in the soil, to help make a better life for their family. I would like to thank them first and foremost. We gather here today to honor Cesar's legacy, but I also want to honor our antepasados, those who came before us, those who came to Lansing, settled and said, this is where we're going to make a home. I know my grandparents did that. And many, many, many of the folks in this room's parents and grandparents did the same. In the early 90s, when I and many of the people in this room, I will not name names, but many of us rallied around to rename a street in Lansing. At that time, we were met with historic opposition, resentment, and outright racism. Yet we marched forward. When they took our street away, we held our heads high and we marched forward. Later, in 2018, when we as a community successfully renamed the street after Cesar, we stood together and we marched forward. We endure and march forward because of the efforts of our antepasados, the legacy Cesar left for us, and we showed the larger community how to organize, unify, and speak with one voice. Our Latino Chicano community stands strong. By the showing, by the people who are in this room, is a testament to our strength. Cesar's overarching message of strength through unity using nonviolence for social justice still holds true today. As we continue to march forward in this era of divisive political rhetoric, continued attacks on our community, and restrictive laws aimed at our people, we continue to march forward and speak with one voice. Now is not the time for division or dissension. I was told to make my remarks short and sweet and to the point, because folks are eating, and I want to eat too. I end with a quote from Cesar. The fight is never about grapes or lettuce. It's always about the people. Keeping that in mind as we march forward. To that I will add that without family, without friends, and community, what do we have? Remember, there is strength through unity. And I'll end with, as we have our lunches and talk and converse and reconnect with folks, please follow what I say after with three
The clap.
not the clap. I'm gonna leave that to the clap. That's
Right,
okay.
That goes there.
That goes there. So, que viva Cesar Chavez.
¡Que viva!
Que viva Cesar Chavez.
¡Que viva!
Que viva Cesar Chavez.
¡Que viva!
Orale. Thank you, everybody.
For the moment, sit down, relax, enjoy your lunch. We will be followed up by the keynote speaker. And after the keynote speaker, we will have also, in case there's time for more pictures, but I'd like to introduce at this time, to continue eating, a family that I met from Adrian, Michigan. Adrian, Michigan was also very significant to Cesar Chavez. He went there many times, and I was able to find out that Mr. and Mrs. Guadalupe de Leon from Adrian have an exhibit, a memorabilia exhibit way back from the 60s all the way through posters, buttons, all this information that sometimes we forget. It isn't that long ago that this issue of labor, the entire issue of labor and union and the undocumented and the refugee is one of the most serious issues in our country today. So we still have to do that work. Mr. De Leon and his wife, I think, are out there in the MAC room. If you have not gotten a chance to see that exhibit, I highly recommend that you do. And they also want to make sure that they get a picture with Andres Chavez. Really, they came from Texas to do what? Actually work and toil in those hot fields. They established themselves in Adrian, and they were able to work, buy a house, live a good life. But as I listened to them over the telephone, they told me a lot of the stories that they had to go through when they first came to Michigan. So, with those words, continue eating, have your lunch, and right after that, we will be right back for the keynote speaker. I don't really have a lot of words to say about who this person is and what he represents. I think everybody knows that. So I'd like to bring up the grandson of the great American icon Cesar E. Chavez, his grandson, Andres Chavez. Oh, no,
Sí se puede.
I told Lorenzo you all didn't have to stand, but I appreciate it, and thanks for the kind introduction. Just to start off on behalf of the Chavez family, the Cesar Chavez Foundation, all of us in the farm worker movement, we just want to give special thanks to all the organizers of this event for the invitation to be here with you all, and thanks to all of you for attending. This is a beautiful showing of community. If there's one thing I know my tata loved, it was people coming together, and so I just want to thank you all for that. I want to highlight the committee once again. I know there's 4 individuals. If you all could just raise your hand and we can acknowledge the 4 folks here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and give them some big round of applause. I have to especially point out Luciana, who made initial contact and pushed the event back so that we could make it here with you all. And I know that she and I were on the phone until about midnight last night. Funny story, I'll just kind of go on a little tangent. Leaving Los Angeles, there was some delays on the plane, and I got postponed for about an hour and a half. By the time I got to Chicago to catch my connecting flight, they had kicked me off that flight, and so they said I wasn't going to be here till about 12:30, which was too late for the event because there was things starting at 11. And so Sane Benavides drove all the way from Lansing to come pick me up in Chicago yesterday at 1 a.m. So he picked me up at 1 a.m. We arrived at the hotel this morning at 6:28. So we've had quite the experience to get here, but there's nothing the Si Se Puede attitude can't stop, right? And it was certainly live here with Sane, and I just thank you. And I was trying to be a good co-pilot, and I'm there and I'm listening to him, and he's telling me all about Lansing and everything that's going on, and I'm kind of in and out, and I go, Sane, I'm sorry, brother. I need to just shut my eyes for about 45 minutes here, and so I took a quick nap, and then we woke up and got right back to talking, but it was nice to have that trip. And I also just want to acknowledge some folks here in the room with us today. I want to acknowledge, you already heard it, but Lupe Ramos Montegni from Grand Rapids and the delegation that she brought with her. There's a lot of communities throughout the country who have chosen to honor my Tata Cesar's life and legacy, and few do it better than the folks there in Grand Rapids. She's been at it for, what, Lupe? 24 years. 24 years. And so just thankful to her. And then, I can't go without acknowledging some of the folks who do the real work on a daily basis. I want to point out Dano with the United Farm Workers Foundation. These are the folks who are on the front lines working with farm workers. I see my brother Ron Estrada over there with Farm Worker Justice, who's also advocating for farm workers on a daily basis. And where's Elias at? Did he head out with the camp program? But there's a lot of folks out there who work, and I met some of the folks from the Michigan, I forget the name of the group that works with farm workers here and doing outreach, but I just want to give them a big round of applause because of the work that they do on a daily basis to make sure that we're taking care of our farm workers. And of course, I also just want to, I'm going to be doing a lot of thanks here, but I also want to thank the city of Lansing and Mayor Shore for being here today and helping support this, as well as all the sponsors. And let's just give a big round of applause for all the wonderful servers and the folks behind the scenes making sure that we could enjoy the food. I've had a lot of really great conversations this morning, and just learning about my tata's time here in Lansing, and it was great talking with the De Leons. If you haven't been out there to see that memorabilia and those archival assets that they have, that's incredible. I mentioned we travel all around the country talking about my Tata Caesar's life and legacy and his work, but there's few better archival collections than what you see out there. That is a real treasure, especially that button collection. So I just want to thank them and for continuing the history by preserving our historical assets. I think, as I've grown a little older, I began to appreciate how much more important that is, because it's a part of our history. It's a part of that living history, and preserving it is so important. Everybody's hit on this already, but Michigan has always been a state that has welcomed our farm worker movement with open arms. My tata visited here many times throughout his life, and I've actually begun to spend a little bit more time here, particularly with the committee there in Grand Rapids. It really goes back to the inception of our movement. In 1965, on September 16th, when Filipinos and Latinos joined together to form that historic grape strike in Delano, the first set of support that we received from organized labor was from Walter Reuther and the UAW. They committed $10,000 a month until the strike was done, and if it wasn't for people like Walter Reuther and folks in Michigan supporting our movement, we would have never seen the accomplishments of farm workers. And this goes back into the 60s, the 70s, and 80s with all of our boycotts here. Michigan is the farm worker movement. Michigan is part of the reason that we've had so much success as a movement, and why we've been able to advance the causes of farm workers. The other thing that I want to hit on, in addition to that, is not only have you all been tremendous supporters, but Michigan was also the place that we were able to recruit future generations of farm worker movement leaders, most notably Arturo S. Rodriguez, who was at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor as a graduate student in the social work program, and he later went on to be the president of the United Farm Workers following my tata Caesar when he passed away in 1993. Again, that took place right here in Michigan. Now, the funny thing that I share with people is my Tío Richard Chavez, my tata Caesar's brother, was the one who recruited him. My Tío Richard, just a side note, was the one who designed the iconic UFW Black Eagle. Though my Tío Richard was the one who made initial contact, it was really my Tia Lou, my Nana and Tata's daughter, I think, who helped seal the deal. They met here in Michigan. They ended up falling in love, and that's how she got him to go to California, and that's how he started his career with the farm workers movement. To add one more thing to that, their daughter, Julie Chavez Rodriguez, who also spent a lot of time here in Michigan and was here recently, is now the campaign manager for Biden's reelection campaign. So this history here in Michigan goes way back and has had tremendous impact on our farm workers movement. And so it just makes me really, really excited to be here with you all today. And excited isn't the word. I think thankful is the appropriate word, just to be in the room with you all, people who've supported us in the good times and the bad times. And so thank you to you all. And let's just give a big round of applause to the good people here in Lansing and Michigan. I've been doing these speaking events since I was about 16 years old. And I remember my first speaking event, it was in Echo Park. It's a little neighborhood outside of downtown Los Angeles. And I had just gotten my license. And my Tío Artie Rodriguez, who I just mentioned, had purchased or had sold me an old beat-up Toyota Tacoma for $2,000. And I guess in my dad's eyes and in my uncle's eyes, that's all I needed to get started. If you're wondering about how that event went, I think if I said it went okay, that's probably being pretty generous. I remember that event like it was yesterday. I had to close the program out that day, and I shared the stage with a state senator named Richard Polanco, who was this prolific speaker and very inspiring. And following Polanco was this comedian named Ernie G, and he had just everybody laughing, and then I had to go up and follow them. This is to top off driving on LA freeways for the first time and dealing with traffic, and I had to parallel park for the first time, right? And so it was just quite the experience. And where I grew up at the movement's headquarters in Keene, California, some of you have been. It's very rural. We don't have to worry about parallel parking there, and the only time that there's traffic is when a deer is crossing the road, right? So I was pretty nervous for that, but on my way over here, I found myself particularly nervous for this event. I've been doing this for 15 years now, but when the committee reached out, we shared with them some names. We gave him my dad, Paul Chavez's name. We gave him Arturo Rodriguez's name, and somehow I got picked, so you can blame it on the committee for not getting them. But I think when we look at my dad and Arturo's careers, they both went on to lead our movement for 3 decades. And their work really resulted in the direct impact and advancement for farm workers, Latinos, and working families. But they also had the opportunity to work directly with and learn from my Tata Cesar. Unfortunately, I didn't have that opportunity to meet or work with my Tata Cesar. He passed away just 9 months before I was born. This January, I celebrated my 30th birthday. And when I look at the first 30 years of my life and compare them to the first 30 years of my Tata Cesar's life, the truth is that they're pretty different. I was certainly connected to the work of the movement growing up, marching and picketing, volunteering my summers at the union headquarters, and walking precincts and knocking on doors for political candidates that were supportive of farm workers. But when I look at my life, it was more similar to that of many other middle-class American kids, and less similar to that of my Tata Cesar. I had the opportunity to grow up and play Little League Baseball in Army in the creek below my house with my friends and my primos. And my Tata Cesar spent much of his childhood working alongside his parents in the fields. When I went to school, I only attended 4 schools from the time I started in kindergarten to the time that I graduated in high school. But if you look at my Tata, and I had the opportunity to get a college education, but when you look at my Tata's life, from the time that he started school and went to 8th grade, he attended over 20 different schools and never had the chance to even go to high school. When I was young, I had the opportunity to dream, and I had some big dreams, maybe about becoming president one day or running a large corporation or becoming a professional athlete. And those dreams may have been crazy, wild dreams. The wonderful thing about those dreams is that they were certainly possible during my lifetime. But for my Tata, when he was a kid, he could certainly dream, but that's all his dreams would ever be, was dreams. My Tata used to share stories with the family about how when he was a kid and he and my Tio Richard would be picking oranges, and one would stand on one side of the tree and the other would be on the other side of the tree, and they'd sit there, and just to make time pass, they'd talk about all these hopes and dreams and aspirations that they had for themselves and their family. And my Tata shared that with my dad, that the toughest part of dream wasn't that they lacked creativity or that they lacked imagination, but the toughest part was that once those words came out of their mouths, that's where those dreams ended. And I think that's why my Tata's work was just as much about giving folks the chance and the opportunity to succeed as it was about working conditions and better pay. And I think, as Pablo alluded to, that's why he said the fight was never about the lettuce or the grapes. It's always about people. My Tata Cesar had this incredible faith in people and their potential, especially people who looked like him. He truly believed that the poorest of this nation's poor could overcome and prevail against some of the most powerful interests in this world and in this nation. Later in my Tata's life, he traveled all around the country. After he traveled all around the country championing the farm workers, he would meet people from all walks of life, from every race and every socioeconomic status, and they would share with him how they were inspired by the work of our farm workers movement. And that inspiration not only drew from the fact that they believed that they could make a difference, but it also drew from the fact that people believed that they too could achieve their dreams and they could be the keepers of their own destiny. And I think that's why 31 years after he passed away, we continue to remember his legacy today. You know, a couple summers ago, the UFW conducted a 25-mile march, 355-mile march from Delano to Sacramento to urge our Governor, Gavin Newsom, to sign a bill that would ensure farm workers the ability to vote safely and free of intimidation in union elections. And during that march, I never felt more connected to my Tata's spirit and his legacy. I remember that first day of the march, about 500 people joined us, and there was just something that immediately drew me to the power of the march and all the excitement that was there. And it inspired me so much so that any chance I had the opportunity, I was out there marching with them. I was taking time off of work, and I was just trying to get as close as I could to that experience as possible. Eventually, because I was out there so much, they asked if I'd leave my job for 2 weeks and help coordinate logistics for the final day of the march. A lot of my work is logistics-based, believe it or not, but they asked me to coordinate this final rally for about 7,500 people at our state's capital. And I think that march was a perfect example of how that legacy lives today. It was a great example because it really inspired people to prevail and persist against tremendous odds. Just 1 year before we were marching to Sacramento, we had introduced that same exact bill and sent it to the governor's desk, and he vetoed it on the first day that he got the bill. But this time, the farm workers insisted that we were going to do everything in our power to make sure that we got Governor Newsom to sign it. And so as we marched every single day, we began to see a lot of momentum begin to build, and that legacy began to show more and more. Every single half mile or so, it was incredible because we were met with folks giving us cold beverages. Remember, this is the middle of summer. This is August in California through the Central Valley. There was days where we were marching in 100-plus degree weather. And there was folks meeting us with these cold beverages and snacks. And the beautiful thing was that many of the folks who were out there donating these items were the sons and daughters of farm workers who had escaped the fields and who had gone on to create better lives for themselves as doctors, as lawyers, as business owners, and people who worked in other professions. And that legacy was also alive in a very profound way through this young farm worker and marcher named Joshua Casas. Joshua joined the march just a few days after we started. And he came from this little small farm working town called Porterville. And just like me, he was very moved by the march, and he decided that he wanted to continue full time, leaving behind his 2 young children and his wife. And on the final night of the march, there was a supporter who hosted a special dinner for all the peregrinos. This was the committed group of marchers who went the whole way. And that night, one of the UFW's press people had come across a newspaper article where you had Joshua on the front page of the newspaper, right? And Elizabeth Strader, who was the press person, called everybody's attention, and she presented Joshua with this newspaper. Now, I didn't have a chance to be there for that moment. I was elsewhere, but later in the night, Joshua and I got to share a little bit of time together. And I remember it so vividly. He walked over to me beaming with pride. And he goes, "Look, Andres, look. I can't wait to go home and show my daughters." With tears in his eyes. And I remember looking at him. By this time, we're both chillones. And I told him, just like your kids learn about my tata in history class, my kids will one day get to learn about you. You know, that moment in interaction with Joshua has always stuck with me, and I think it's always stuck with me because it was a perfect example of somebody who was working on change today for the people of tomorrow. And I think that's the best way to honor my Tata Cesar's legacy, to be of service to others and to advocate on behalf of the issues that we're most passionate about. You know, I really believe that it would be a terrible waste of a lot of people's hard work and sacrifice for us just to sit here and enjoy those freedoms and opportunities that were created for us and not do anything to advance them even further. You know, I really, really do believe it's our obligation to pay it forward and to keep on working towards a society that's more fair, that's more equitable, and that treats all people, regardless of the color of their skin, regardless of the people who you love, regardless of where you come from, that we're all treated with dignity and respect. And I think what I've learned about this process and fighting the good fight is that this process never comes easy. I think you all experienced it here with the street naming in Lansing. You talked about the racism and the disrespect that you all were met with. But I think that's where my Tata's most important lesson comes in. And I think it was the trait that defined his legacy. And it was the words that he shared with so many, and they were so simple. And he would always tell people that you only lose when you give up and when you stop fighting. You know, when I look at my Tata's life and legacy, it's very clear. He actually had more defeats than he had victories. He lost more times than he won, but it was how he responded to those defeats that defined his legacy. When my Tata got knocked down, he would get back up. When he felt like quitting, he would keep on pushing. And when people told him, no, you can't, he would say, si se puede. And so that's how I want to end today's message, is with those very simple words, si se puede. Because we know those are the words that have got us to the place that we're at today, but more importantly, those are the words that are going to continue to inspire us so that we can create communities that we're all proud to be a part of. And so I thank you all very much for this opportunity. And one last time, si se puede. Thank you.
You can explain it to him.
Oh, yeah.
Please, thank you.
I did a bad job. They gave me one job. They didn't tell me what, they said, say whatever you want, but you have one job. Can you teach everybody the farm workers clap? And I think a lot of us know it. If you don't know, it's easy to follow along. We're going to start nice and slow, and we're going to work our way faster, okay? Y'all ready?
¡Que viva César Chavez! ¡Que viva!
Hello, Capital City. We are at the Legacy of Cesar Chavez event, and I am here with Chief John Joseph from the Lansing Township. And tell me what brought you here. What attracted you to the Chavez event, Chief?
Well, good afternoon. I'm here for two reasons. One, I got invited as the Chief of Police for Lansing Township. Actually, three reasons. Number two, I happen to be the co-chair for the Greater Lansing Area ALPAC, which is Advocates and Leaders for Police and Community Trust. So this event fits right into our mission at ALPAC, and I happen to support the cause as well.
That's wonderful. What did you think of Mr. Chavez's speech?
I did not realize that the grandson of Cesar Chavez was going to be here today, so the fact that he was amazing. I never thought I'd be able to see him, let alone get a chance to meet him here in a few minutes, so very excited about that.
Oh, that's wonderful. We're so thankful that you came. Thank you so much.
You're
Thank you for your support, too.
Thank you.
It means so much. Words can't really explain it. The main thing, I think, is that his legacy is alive. And we continue today because even though he had many successes and victories, the battle and the challenges continue today. Today we still face many of the same issues. We made a lot of progress, true, but we have to keep going, and that's really what he had. Hey, si se puede.
Si se puede. Thank you. And we look forward to seeing you again next year.
Thank you so much for setting this up. It's a wonderful event, the first of many years.
That's right, the first of many years. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
It's basically to keep the legacy going for Cesar Chavez and show that Lansing is a diverse community, that we can all come together and just, honor his legacy and go by what he stood for.
Absolutely. What did you think of Andres Chavez?
It was wonderful speaker. You can't get no better than that to hear from the grandson, straight from him. As even though he wasn't around, he still looked up to him and how he sees him through his eyes. It's just a wonderful experience.
And then the community. I mean, can you just talk a little bit more about that? Like, to me, I love seeing how everybody came for this. You know what I mean? It's just a wonderful, inclusive way to educate and to bring people together.
Yeah, like I said, it is diverse. Like, we had people of every race, just to be here and to celebrate what he stood for. And like I said, it's not just Hispanic or Latino. It's everybody have that freedom and that power to just to say that you can keep going on and do what you got to do, your dream.
Awesome. So I look forward to next year.
Yes, bigger and better next
Bigger and better. That's right. Thank you.
Cesar Chavez had visited the capital city many times over the course of his work. He had connected with so many of our community members that are still here today celebrating his legacy. I believe it's an honor for the city of Lansing to welcome his grandson, Andres, to speak about his work and commitment and the continued legacy that the Chavez family and the Chavez Foundation has for workers' rights. Lansing is a strong union town. I think that's something we're very proud of. We have such a large Hispanic and Mexican American and Latino community here right in Lansing with so many ties to the work of Cesar Chavez. We are so proud to have renamed one of our local streets to honor Cesar Chavez, and I am so proud of the legacy that he leaves here and has touched so many of our residents right here in Lansing, Michigan.
You know, no, I didn't watch films. I mean, I saw videos of him, obviously, but I don't think I ever studied his speaking style and tried to emulate it. I think what somebody told me about speaking is that all we have is our stories to share. And so I see that as my job, is to go out there and share stories from the past, share my own stories, and kind of bring it all together so it makes sense for today.
And speaking of the powerful story, so when you were talking about, the thing that resonated with me is when you were talking about the oranges. Because from my family, I know what it's like Lisa, just dreams, and you can't fulfill them, in the circumstances you're in. So that was really powerful to me and a lot of others here. I mean, what did you think when you heard that? Like, what did that go across when you first heard that story?
Yeah, when my dad shares that story, it's something that still impacts us today, because I think even though we've made a lot of progress as a society, there still is a lot of folks out there who find themselves in similar situations where they have these dreams and they may just not be afforded to them. And I think that's really the mission that we all have as a collective, is what are we going to do today so that we can begin to open doors and create more opportunities for people. My thought that Cesar, that's the one job he left my dad when he passed away. He told my dad, because of who you are and the life that you were born into, you're going to be afforded more opportunities than your everyday person. But it's your job to make sure that when you have those opportunities, to begin to open the door for others. And if there's a person out there who's never been given a shot, who's never been given the time of day, it's your job to make sure that you give them a shot, that you have faith in them, that you believe in them. And so that's what we see so much of our work being about, is just making sure that people understand that they are capable, right? And oftentimes it's not even so much about capacity, but it's about that opportunity. And then once we get them in there, we got to empower them to begin to make their own decisions and create the good and do the good that we know that they know how to do.
I totally agree, and I think that's really important, especially in all communities and those with marginalized backgrounds, right? And that they can do it, and they're not forgotten, and they're not the underdog. So I thank you so much. I just want to leave with one last question, if you don't mind. Tell me, I know that you had such a challenge getting here, but so far, what do you think of the capital city?
Every time I come out here, it's incredible. I spent a lot of time in Grand Rapids, but my trip here was great. I'm just, the only thing I'm mad about is I don't have more time to spend here. So that just means I have to come back.
That's right. We're going to have you back.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We appreciate you being here.
Well, the Adrian Friends of the Farm Workers got organized in 1968. We were involved with the Community Action Center in Adrian, which worked on issues in the communities. At that time, the boycott had just started and it was taking hold. So we got involved and formed the Adrian Friends of Farm Workers in 1968. Up to 1977, Cesar Chavez gave us credit for running the longest running picket line in the history of the farm workers, almost 9 years. And at that time, we picked up badges for the collection and plus the posters and everything else. And she's a pack rat anyway, so that helped, But this is not all the collection there. We've still got a bunch. And what's his name was supposed to get us to put up more posters because they're all just sitting there. We didn't use them. And we believe very much in them. It's not the popularity of the posters or the badges. It's the cause is still there. The people are still hurting. They need help. Anything that can be done to promote their health and welfare, we're for it completely.
We thank you so much for that. How does one get to see this if you're not here? Do they just come to Adrian?
We come from Adrian, but exhibited this here a few times, and there's people that are, but this takes a lot of time, and you know, you got to holler at each other a little bit, but I guess that's part of the way it's got to go. But if we have to, we can go, and as far as if the health holds out and all that, we'll keep putting it up.
That's wonderful. So are you still, you've been collecting this stuff since the 60s?
Yes.
And you're still?
Well, we just got 2 new buttons today, and they're beautiful. They're Cesar Chavez buttons, and they are beautiful, and they'll probably be the newest buttons on the collection that we have right there.
Well, that's wonderful. We really, really appreciate you coming here and sharing this with us.
We appreciate the hospitality, and it's good to see, you know, that the efforts are being made, because even on Facebook, when you go on Facebook and you see our people going through what they're going through in the fields and all this and that, it's not right. It's time for a change, and it's a very much needed change, you know.